Welcome back, YouTube. As you can see here, I've got all my wood framing done on the lower part of the pop-up trailer, and I wanted to take this time out to show you a few things that you might want to watch out for if you do a rebuild yourself. You can see from these views that I've got all the 2x2s all screwed in, and they're all square and perpendicular, and everything looks bright and shiny and fresh. And that's all good. But, and there's always the but, sometimes it's a big but. Not all is as it appears to be. This is a 1982 Jayco J-Flight 6 pop-up tent. It had a lot of wood rot and a lot of wood damage. I saved all the pieces I could for patterns and for measurement, and I'm pretty sure I got 80% of it. But there are some pieces that I'm not sure whether they were supposed to be there or not. And that is the case with these front and rear toe boards. This toe board here is interfering with the cranking mechanism. I looked at the old decking and I looked at the holes and measured them out for mounting the crank on the decking and looked at where the location was compared to what I have now. And these toe boards are going to be in the way. The crank mechanism is for the lift for the top of the pop-up camper. So I'm not sure it had a toe board, but yet it had to have had a toe board to support that middle upright on the front section. So it may be that I have to cut out some pieces of this toe board, but keep the pieces that I need in place to support that middle section. This is a view of the back end of the trailer, and I'm going to have the same problem with the toe board and the interference with the lift mechanism there as well. So I'm pretty sure it had to have a toe board. I'm not sure it had to have that toe board in that location. Another thing to consider with this lift system is I have the aluminum plate that goes on top of the top plate for protection. Well, those holes in that aluminum plate are there, and they don't move around. So your framing, your wood framing has to match that aluminum plate inch for inch. And so the pockets for the lift mechanisms have to align with those aluminum plates. Here I'm going to show you the lift mechanism for the driver's side front. This little elbow piece has to screw to the wall and to the floor, but that toe board there is interfering with that, and that will have to be cut out of the way. Then once you've got that in place, you have this coil spring mechanism that has to curl up inside that curved part. And that curved spring sticks up into this aluminum box to provide the lift that lifts the top of the pop-up camper. All of this has to be aligned so that the lift will function correctly and properly lift the top of the trailer. Another area of concern when you're doing this framing would be your doorway. You need to make sure the door is in the correct location and the doorway is square and perpendicular to the floor, and you also want to make sure it's the correct width. And it helps immensely if you have the old door to be able to do a test fit. In case you're wondering, I have a temporary extra brace across the doorway to keep the two walls in line with each other. I have extra temporary bracing all the way around the frame just for the same purpose, to keep everything in place and everything square and perpendicular. The next thing to consider would be the outside skin. They used 1/8 inch wood paneling for the outside skin underneath the aluminum. They stapled the aluminum to the wood paneling. I got some wood paneling from Lowe's, and it's 2.7 millimeter. It's about 1/8 inch thick, and it's real wood. They make paneling that is a composite, like MDF. You don't want to put that into a situation like this. That stuff acts like a sponge and it will soak up any moisture and lead to rot. You want to deal with real wood paneling if you can. Another thing you need to be aware of when you rebuild one of these things is that the lumber is not necessarily standard size. I've got a current day 2x2 here, and I'm laying it up against 2x2s and 1x2s that are in the walls, and they are not exactly the same size as far as thickness. The current modern day 2x2 is about 1/8 of an inch thicker than what they were using. Mine measures about 1.5 inches. Theirs measures about 1 3/8 inches. That doesn't sound like much until you start adding things together. For a vapor barrier, I'm going to use 30-pound felt. And you can get a roll of this in the roofing section of the big box stores easily. One roll will be more than enough for one pop-up camper. The vapor barrier will be located on the outside of the plywood, in between the plywood and the aluminum skin. These are just some things to think about as you're contemplating rebuilding your pop-up camper. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. I got more to come.